they've have Roblox rolling because like I said, it's going towards I think more of a younger crowd to bring them into the game. Like how do you get this?
Yeah.
How do you target a market that has been pretty indifferent so far and get into their space so that they can really become a new consumer? And so I think it's a cool thing that they're doing there. And then on top of that, with NBA and Meta, I do like it. But my question about both of these, Roblox, obviously, it has more of the community feel, but for an early rollout, and I know we talked on the last pod about, if I can take a Roy term, being disruptors, disruptors in the market.
Yeah.
And this technology is doing this because VR, you have to put on a big clunky headset.
Yeah.
There has to be a point where you can make this more seamless of like, oh, yeah, you guys want to watch the game on 8K and like we're sitting courtside, boom, let's just throw on glasses and go from there. It's technology that's down the road. Don't know how we end up getting there, but that's what I think you need to have from an ease of use because I was looking at and reading some interviews and some people were hesitant to like, I want to have the gigantic VR headset on, and now you're kind of lonesome by yourself. Although you could be with other people a little bit, you're experiencing something that others around you cannot. So It takes you away from, your live viewing experiences that you might be having with people that are with you. So I like where it's going. I'm just hesitant for how it's initially released, but then you ask yourself, like, how else can they do it,
That is, I agree with you, right? And you think about second screen viewing and something we talk about all the time, right? And especially with the NBA, where you have Twitter being a part of the conversation. I know Twitter recently has changed the algorithm and all that. It's been a little different if you're like watching a game live and trying to interact with like your favorite Twitter follows. But I'm with you. The tough thing with that is that you've got this headset on. At some point, I'm sure we'll get down to like the glasses or those type of things, right? But right now we've got a headset from a VR perspective. But that does take you away from like other things you might want to do. And even during a game, even a game that I'm like super locked in on, I still kind of like, you might want to go check something else or flip a channel, right? Like, to your point, there are all these game sevens the other day in hockey, right? As the Warriors Kings game's going off, you might want to flip. You're like flipping a little bit. So like if you just have the headset on, it takes some of that ability away. Or if you've got, to your point, like a man cave, as you kind of started off this segment, right? You've got multiple TVs or multiple things you're doing, or you might be in your living room chipping or putting or whatever, right? And so if you have a headset on, it changes some of that, like what you do functionally as you watch a game. So I'm sure at some point we'll get it'll change, but right now, if you want to have that 180-degree virtual experience right now from a courtside perspective, the best way for you to do it without spending thousands of dollars is to lock in on that Oculus headset.
All right, well, let's talk to the bigger side of, especially staying with Meta. So in 2022, Meta lost $13.7 billion on Reality Labs.
Yeah.
At what point do they have to pivot? And I understand when you're being a disruptor, when you're being dynamic, when you're trying to accelerate, when you are trying to do those things, you're going to take some L's before obviously you get it right officially. And then you can then start seeing some dividends start paying off from it. But 13.7 billion, I understand Zuckerberg got some billions under him and he makes money as the seconds tick away. But to your shareholders, that's just a huge red flag. Do you see these losses being able to cripple the future for VR, AR, and the meta world from the Roy Halladay, if I have the first name right, from the Steve Spielberg movie?
The Spielberg movie. Ready Player One.
And trying to make that a reality. So do you see with these losses that it might be curtailed for the future of Meta, and then you see Meta going away? Or do you think you're this far in with you're 10 toes down? There's no change in course if you believe this is the future.
I don't think their change obviously reduced the amount of people there, right? I believe in their layoffs last year, a large portion of it, or like a lion's share of it, was in their Reality Labs division. But no, I mean, they're still launching their next generation headset here in 2023. And then I believe in 2025 is when the glasses come out. So they still have a roadmap for how this works. I think, and this, we hit this on the last pod, right? Where it's trust and distrust. I think what happened, they went all in so fast. And then when Zuckerberg did that one announcement, or maybe it was like a town hall or whatever it was, and the figures looked like you were in like Sim City, people were
it was Wii bowling. Awful.
Yeah. Right. And you're like, wait, there's other products out there that are way farther advanced than you are, right?
Yeah.
So no, I don't think that the vision has changed. I think the speed in which they are trying to get there has changed a little bit, right?
Yeah.
On Oculus themselves, they've done a little bit better. Like the headset, they've got more games now on there as well. So I think that's helped to kind of seed that product. It's all about that, right? You've got to get people into the adoption of the product, right? Or again, using that word seeding, you got to seed the product and get people into being use cases and users and word of mouth and all that type of stuff that happens with this type of thing. So yeah, I mean, the tough thing right now for people, to your point, is the headset. Putting on a headset and like locking in for a long periods of time just isn't what people want to do with their time, especially because we're so connected to our phones and TikTok and Instagram and all that type of stuff, right? But I do think there's still a roadmap for what Meta has discovered here, is that AI and all of this is truly still coming, but in what speed do they get there, I think is now their, how do they look at it, right?
So their Q1 earnings report, they did lose $3.99 billion in the first quarter, but it seems like that gap, or it was less than the fourth quarter in in 2022. So look at that kind of as a little bit of a positive. But the generated revenue was down last quarter, so they only brought in $339 million versus the $727 million that they had. But you have to look at $727 million in Q4 with you look at kind of at a grain of salt a little bit, because obviously it's the holiday season. It's more of a higher buying propensity to buy. So I think 339 could still be looked at as a strong number. I mean, still you're pulling in, you're at half.
Yeah, but again, I think that's the tough thing, right? Like they have to invest with the expectation of losses, right? Yeah. Because consumers have not adapted to virtual reality. And this goes really back to when they bought like the VR back in like 2014. They were a little slow. We've been, I think, slow just in general of getting virtual reality to the market and getting people comfortable with like what it looks like and wearing a headset and all those type of things. Because of that, now you're trying to force feed this into the market, and that's just not going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. And I do, to your point, right? Like the math doesn't work from like a profitability perspective yet. Mm-hmm. But I think they're comfortable with that. I think they know that they're going to continue to have losses, probably 23 and in 24. Again, when the glasses come out and the glasses start to look like something James Bond has, and it's got second screen ability, and you can look at your Twitter feed while also like watching something in VR. When that hits the market here in 25, now you're different, right? But you've got to get people used. At some point, people just have to get used to like, what is virtual reality, right? Yeah. And I think that's where they've, in my opinion, again, I think they tried to go too fast, but I think that's where they failed in trying to just get people comfortable with it, because you're going to have all these different iterations and all these advancements at some point, but you just got to get people like, oh, I want to go do that tonight when I'm sitting at home on a Friday night instead of going out or something.
So right now, I mean, the cool thing with Meta that I think, and I agree with you on the negative that you just pointed out, because I've been hard on Meta. I'll be honest. I've been hard. Sure. Because I see the other side, because I got common sense. Matt got the big brain, but so I agree with you for what you just said on the negative there. But on the positive side, or would you say without